So good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. So my presentation today asks why the prevalence of extended family and non-kin co-residence is so high in Ambridge, or perhaps, more to the point, why was a grown woman why did Jazzer break his string of romantic conquest to live with Jim Lloyd? So to define my terms, co-residence is simply individuals who are living in a shared dwelling as their common primary residence. An extended family co-residence is one where a household where at least one adult is related to but not married or romantically connected to the household head, and this may include adult children who are no longer in school. Non-kin co-residence are households occupied by unrelated individuals, what we think of as housemates or flatmates. Looking at the Ambridge map in red here, I've circled some examples of extended family co-residence at Grange Farm and Brookfield Farm. The blue circles were meant to illustrate cases of non-kin co-residence. I selected the lodge and where Peggy and Christine live, and the bungalow where the unlikely grouping of Bert Fry and But astute listeners will recall that Peggy and Christine are in fact sisters-in-law, making this a rather remote but still a remote example of extended family co-residence. So extended family and non-kin co-residence in Ambridge is remarkably high compared to national averages. In the 2011 census of England and Wales, about 8% of households could be classified as extended family or non-kin co-residence. By my estimation of known occupancy of households in Ambridge, about 46% of households fall into the classification. So there are three primary explanations that I'm going to draw on for my field of family demography to consider how these arrangements emerge. And the first is economic need, which is simply the case, so that all of these reasons are conceptually distinct, but they may overlap empirically, simply meaning that people may have more than one reason for living together. So economic need simply refers to an instance where at least one household member cannot afford to live independently. So Jazzer would be an example of this, but Jim would not. In contrast, the Grundys at Grange Farm represent a case where no one in the extended family household can afford to live apart. Health and family care typically refer to arrangements where household members provide nursing care to an infirm adult, or where relatives other than a parent provide care to young children. Helen relies on these arrangements for care of Jack and Henry at Bridge Farm, and while there are few infirm adults in the program at the moment, I'll return in a moment to another way of thinking about this explanation that pertains to older adults. Cultural norms refer to attitudes and behaviors that are considered normal or typical in a group whose members share a common identity. Often cultural norms are hard to recognize among the people who live by them. They're simply the way things are, but they're not necessarily universal. So, for example, the American preoccupation with ice cubes and orthodonture may be anathema of most of the world. These three explanations are, to some extent, fairly obvious and in an abstract or generic sense, but Ambridge provides a really nice context to think about them a bit more deeply, and perhaps to influence how we think about co-residence even in other settings. So turning to the example, thinking about cultural norms first, and I think picking up very much on what Claire commented on, we can think about land ownership. So I argue that the cultural norms that are associated with land ownership in particular create distinctive opportunities and enforce obligations among individuals who have some tie to the land. The legal and economic framework that supported a system of primogeniture and reliance on family members to work land holdings in rural Britain are no longer in force, but echoes of these systems remain in place at Brookfields, Bridge, and Home Farms. They are places adult children can remain or return to, giving them some measure of security in the world. But their own sense of agency is constrained by a common sense of filial obligation in the family. While other unmarried women like Brenda Tucker and Amy Franks have left Ambridge, Pip soldiers on at home, seeking some occasional measure of independence in her residential choices, only to be lured back perennially by her anxious parents and the assurance that there will always be a flapjack as long as she doesn't share it with Toby. Very importantly, this model of opportunity and obligation only holds for family members, as Claire noted. People outside of the family cannot expect an extended welcome at Lower Loxley. The past few years at Home Farm have presented a revolving door model of extended family access to tenured property. At various times, Kate, Phoebe, Nolatondo, and Lillian turned up on the Home Farm doorstep with an unstated expectation of a lasting welcome. And when the household reached its densest occupancy, its patriarch routinely fled to the bowl for breathing room. Again, this access was available only to immediate kin. In an interesting recent plot twist, however, Lexi has been granted a stay in a cottage on Home Farm property during her expected pregnancy, and a marker of her contingent connection to the family. Turning to economic need, Claire has already done a wonderful job of describing how housing scarcity and opposition to development drive up home prices. Those who lack a connection to the land rely on a system of patronage from a less well-endowed, mostly unmarried tier of homeowners. The tight housing market in Ambridge is periodically brought into relief as the unpropertied find themselves on the cusp of being driven out by issues of scarcity and inaffordability. Nearly always, though, our village residents are able to remain or return as the beneficiaries of someone else's largesse or misfortune. Recent examples of individuals or couples who have sought housing elsewhere only to return to Ambridge include Emma and Ed, who were able to return to Grange Farm with their extended family when the Tuscan sun beckoned Oliver and Caroline, and who may finally gain a foothold in the housing market through a combination of chicken factory wages and Justin Elliott's affordable housing plan. Harrison and Fallon were prepared to sacrifice the shabby charm and convenience of Woodbine when Harrison's parents stepped into the breach with a private loan that also afforded Christine the opportunity to convert not only the proceeds from the sale of her home, but all of her assets into a cash windfall for Hugo Melling. When Kirsty returned to Ambridge, she found ample spare bedrooms to rent after the exodus inspired by Loxfest. And only Tom was able to return to Ambridge without serendipitous intervention. His parents willingly received him into the Bridge Farm's apparently TARDIS-like, ever-expansive interior. Finally, turning to health and family care, the Archers opens a new window on this particular topic. I suggest that in Ambridge, co-residence by older adults in non-kin and extended family arrangements is less about seeking physical health care and more a strategy to protect against isolation and loneliness. In a country that brought the plight of Eleanor Rigby to public attention and recently appointed a minister for loneliness, it seems fitting that Ambridge's older residents would accept or seek out co-residence as one means of social connection and companionship. Current examples of this odd fellowship include Peggy and Christine, Jim and Jazzer, and Bert and the Fair brothers, all living in frequently fraught and occasionally charming shared living arrangements. Finally, I will note that the living arrangements described here give Archer's listeners the pleasure of hearing the private voices of more Ambridge residents. With no companion at home, we would know some individuals only as public figures in the village shop or at the Bull. Hearing private voices adds dimensionality and richness to these, dare I say, imagined characters. We hear the tenderness in how Lindy speaks to Robert at home, and it gives us greater patience for her imperious command of the Christmas panto. We binge through Chilly Night at Ambridge but find the good behind Susan's social striving because Neil sees through it. Similarly, extended family co-residence has given us exposure more than once to Lillian's broken heart laid bare to Jennifer at Home Farm, and we understood the context of Pip's pregnancy decision better than her parents did because of her conversations with Elizabeth at Lower Loxley. Further, only we and Peggy know the true extent of Christine's penury. So to summarize, the context of Ambridge reveals fresh insights about extended family and non-kin co-residence. We see that land ownership is a mechanism through which social class shapes opportunity. We're reminded that rural housing economies present unique challenges to nuclear family and solo co-residence that can really be resolved only by luck and social connection. And finally, we can hypothesize that co-residence may serve as a balm against loneliness and improve older health, particularly for Ambridge's older adults. Thank you.